Good morning. This is VirtualPBX admin training. We're going to get started here fairly quickly. I just want to make sure my audio is working properly and that we're actually transmitting here to YouTube. There we go. If you have any questions, feel free to make use of the chat and I will go ahead and address those questions at that time regarding the features or whatnot. The training will take roughly an hour and a half, sometimes a little longer depending on load times. We do record the training, so if you can't stay for the whole time, that's fine. You can come back later. We keep them here on our YouTube channel, as well as other related videos. But let's go ahead and get dived in because we're already at 10 o'clock. So on our page here, we see our dash login page, just at dash.virtualpbx.com. We need 3 pieces of information to get logged in. First and foremost, your email address, then your password, which should have been emailed to you, and then the account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if you forgot your password or for some reason you never got the email, over here on the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have a forgot your info link. You can click on that. And we need 2 pieces of information. This time, we still need your email address, right? That's what your user is associated with. Then we need either the account name, right? So the company name, or a phone number on the account, right? It's like your main company phone number. And then you would click on reset password. This will send you an email. There'll be a link in that email that you can double click on. It will allow you to change your password, and then it logs you back out of your system. Basically, what's that doing is allows you to type in your password here, and then click on the Remember Me box to click on Sign In. A couple things to point out here on the Sign In page. Capitalization matters. So for your username, right, your email address should be in all lowercase. But like your account name, right, any capitalizations, any punctuation marks, you need to make sure are there and in the correct spacing. And we go ahead and click on Sign In. Now, as we wait for this to load, one thing is we do recommend using Chrome or Firefox, as well as the most recent versions of Microsoft Edge, because it's based off of the Chrome engine. Other browsers, you may have trouble accessing dash features, so something to be aware of. Now here, you see I'm on my dashboard. Now, I've been on this account several times, which is why I start here. If it's your first time logging into Dash, right, let's say you were just newly added to the account, or you just signed up with us, it's actually going to take you to your user account page. You can get there by clicking on your name up here at the top right. And here we have my user information. This is where I would change my own password, right? I would click here where it says password. I'd enter in the new password and then click on Save Changes. Now, because I'm an admin, over here to the left, I also have account level settings. Most commonly changed thing here is the time zone, to match it to your actual time zone. Now, I'm accessing a test account, so I don't have exactly everything you do. And the main difference is under user on your accounts, you'll have a billing section, which is where you would update your credit card information. You could see what plan you're on. You could update your billing contact information, right? The person, the address, and the email address, right? That's the person who gets your invoices. And you can also see your previous invoices. Now, when you're done here, there's a little close box over to the top right. So we'll go ahead and click on that, and we'll be back here on my dashboard. Now, along the top here, again, you have your name and the account name, right? So you can always click on that to get back to that user account page. For most of you, to the right of your name, you will have a D&D toggle for Do Not Disturb. If you click on it, it'll be mostly white. And at that point, D&D is active, meaning calls sent to your user, they're being sent to voicemail. The reason I don't have it is because my user is part of an ACD queue, and ACD queues and the D&D toggle don't play well together. Next, we have the question mark icon or the help icon. Chat with us. This opens up the chat window, usually on the bottom right of your browser, where you can ask for help. The online store will open a new tab, take you to store.virtualpbx.com. That's where you can order a VoIP phone, for example. Learn more will open a new tab and take you to our support pages, right? So you can look at specific guides on how to set up a particular feature or a VoIP phone. Now, the blank spot here can sometimes be populated by the web phone link. It will show up once you have added a web phone to your user, usually the next time you log in. When you have the web phone link there, it opens up a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net and allows you to use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls from your computer. Next, we have the 3 horizontal line icon, or the hamburger icon, right? Menu icon. This takes you to other Dash features. Some of them, like dynamic caller ID, are plan specific, meaning you have to be on the right plan to have that feature. But we'll be going over all of them. I'll make sure to highlight which ones are plan specific versus are included. And then we have the logout icon. Now here in the center, total users, I have 17 users on my account, right? These are people who make and receive calls. This impacts my bill, right? Usually, most of our plans are built on around how many users you have. Then I got my total devices. Currently, I have 36 devices on this account, and then a breakdown. Now, Dash was built around VoIP phones in mind. If you don't know, VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. Basically, it means using your internet connection to make and receive calls. All right. Now, the first device type I have here is called a soft phone. Software application that acts like a phone. So you use your computer that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. And I have, 13 of them here. This includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app as well as third-party applications, right? It's just one bucket for all the kinds of soft phones. Then I have the web phone. Looks like I have 10 of those on my account. Again, that's using Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. Then we have cell phones, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. Most of us probably have more experience with them than we want. And then SIP phone. SIP phone is a physical phone, right? So the piece of hardware sits on your desk, still uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? So it's a kind of VoIP phone, right? So VoIP is that general umbrella type. SIP is a subtype. There are other kinds of VoIP phones on the market. So if you're shopping, you want to make sure the phones that you buy is SIP compliant or SIP compatible. Down here, I have unregistered devices. This is my system telling me that of my VoIP phones, 2 of them are not connected, right? They're not registered, so we can't send calls to them. Now, the system doesn't know why. It just knows, hey, I'm not getting signal from that device. Could be they're not plugged in. Could be there's an internet problem. We don't know. All right, total numbers. Oops, did not mean to do that. Let's go back to the dashboard if it lets me. So total numbers, I have 32 on my account. Most of our plans include anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. I'm obviously well over that. So I am paying extra for each of these numbers, right? So let's say my plan includes 15. That means I'm paying for 17 extra numbers on my invoice. Now, then we have a breakdown here of assigned numbers and spare numbers, right? Assigned numbers means you're using it, right? It's one of those 4 main numbers you see to the right. Or it's numbers that go directly to one of my salespeople, or a number to a group, whatever. Spare number, I'm not using it right now. Right? Let's say I just had to let someone go for poor performance. They had a direct number on their user, so I removed their user, and that number goes into spare. That means I can use it again later for another person or for another project. Likewise, it could just be you bought a bunch of numbers in sequence and you just haven't gotten to the last numbers yet. That sort of thing. Then we have a breakdown here, US DID and US toll-free. US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? So a 1-800 number, 1-888-877, all the way down to 833. US DID just means a US local phone number. right? So if you want a number in Fort Worth, Texas, it would show up under USDID, right? Same would apply to a phone number, say in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You can have international phone numbers if you wish. If you want to add one, you need to email our porting team, which is porting at virtualpbx.com, and they need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. If there are additional requirements from that country, our porting team will let you know, and then they will acquire that number for you. All right. Next up, we have conference bridges, right, which just means I've enabled conferencing on 2 of my users. Over here to the right, we got our main numbers. So these 4 numbers, they all act in the same way. They all go to the same location. They all have the same main greeting. And obviously you can have multiple main numbers. Conference numbers, these are the phone numbers everyone dials to get your conference rooms. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but they all end up going to the same general place, and then they go out to the separate conference rooms. Fax box number, you can have the one main fax box number. This is your inbound fax number, right? That's what people send your faxes to. All right. Now we have the company directory. This downloads a CSV file, right? So a spreadsheet file. Shows your users, their extension numbers, and their devices. The cell phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop cell phone application. You would download this file, upload it to the VirtualPBX desktop cell phone app, and this allows you to see the status of the other soft phones on your account, right? So if all your staff is using the VirtualPBX desktop cell phone app, you could see who's on a call, who's not, so you know not to either transfer calls or call that person directly. Now, if you're in an environment where people have multiple kinds of phones, right? So let's say my coworker Jeff, he has a Yealink phone and the soft phone, right? On the soft phone directory, I can only see what he's doing with the soft phone, so I wouldn't know if he's on a call on his Yealink. Store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use in store.virtualpbx.com. And then you have the account realm. This is used in a couple things. One is used in outbound faxing, right? So to send a fax out in Dash, it's via email, right? So you create an email like you normally do. In the to field, +, number 1, area code and phone number, @, then you plug in your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file and click send, right? The system, it looks at the from field, it looks at the to field, it looks at the attachment. You can send out 1 attachment per email, or it's only going to process 1 at best. All right, up here, we have company caller ID. This is your default caller ID for your system. This pull down, which unfortunately doesn't show up properly here on my software, you can select any of your main numbers. So any of those 4 numbers over here on the right, I can select. And then you have the company caller ID name, CNAME. This allows you to input 15 characters, including spaces and special characters that we associate with your outbound caller ID number. Then you have the company emergency information, or E911. This allows you to associate a specific address to each of your phone numbers, right? In this case, it's specific to your main company number, but each of your phone numbers, you can assign their own E911 information. So you can fill out both of these fields and then click Save Changes. Now, once you click Save Changes, The CNAME information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them about 3 business days to update their databases. Right? That's their hardware. They control it. We can't make them go any faster. This information is the default that the system uses for your VoIP phones when you make an outbound call. Now, for CNAME, right, not every carrier supports CNAME, so it's possible your outbound call can route through one of those carriers that doesn't support it, which means your CNAME information doesn't get to your destination. When you're calling cell phones, the cell phone carriers control what shows up on the cell phones on their network, right, on their displays. Right, they're the ones who put in spam risk or telemarketer. Right, they will not always display CNAME information. Right, some of them require their subscribers to pay extra for CNAME information to show up on every call. Personally, not worth it. That's why I didn't do it with my cell phone carrier. So just be aware of when you're testing to your cell phones that it may not show up properly. Hold music. Hold music on Dash is defined as after a call has reached one of your users, and then they have pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That is when this hold music file will play. Dash will allow you to upload your own file. It will play back .wav, .mp3, and .ogg files. You want to make sure that they're recorded in mono and that they're under 1 megabyte in size. And you would click on Browse, find the file on your computer, click the up arrow icon here, and then click on Save Changes. Now, ours is part of main number, so let's just dive into main number. All right, main company numbers, right? These shows all your main numbers, right? So all these numbers, again, they're going to the same spot, right? As your main numbers. Now, you can add from spare numbers, right? So any of your extra numbers you can add right here. Or you can buy new numbers, right? Now, under new numbers, you have, or buy numbers, I should say, you have local or toll-free, right? Toll-free, you choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. It will search to see what is available, and you can scroll down the list. I am surprised that number is available. It will repeat the number over here, right? You have one in your cart. You can add multiple at the same time. For most places, you can add a number. And then you click on Buy Numbers. Now, this is a dynamic list, meaning you're competing with other people in real time. So you don't want to, if there's a number you really like, you want to grab it and click Buy. Right? You don't want to sit there, go off to lunch, and come back, because by the time you do that, it's possible the number you like is gone. Right? Local number, slightly different in that you need to know the area code. Right? If you do a search for an area code, you may get this message here, which is basically saying that this area code is exhausted, meaning there are currently no available numbers in that area code. Now, you can request what's called a back order from our porting team. And that just means what we do is we place an outstanding order saying, hey, we want a number in this area code. So if someone gives up a number in the 310 area code, we have a chance to go grab it. Now, there's no way we can give you an ETA on when someone is going to give up their 310 area code phone number, right? So, and we don't even know if we're going to get one. So in that case, a better option would be click here, go back to search, and look for either a nearby area code or an overlay area code. Oops. Where you can see now for 424, which is an overlay for 310, there's many numbers available. And again, same process. You would just click add and then by numbers, and then it would add it here. Now, if you decide you don't want to use a number any longer as one of your main numbers, you can just click unassign next to it. This does not remove it from your account, right? It just made it a spare number. You have a little gear icon here. This is where you can adjust the outbound caller ID, right, the CNAME, as well as turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAME information, right? So that would get passed on to your staff members. right? Here's the E911, so you can have the proper address for each of your phone numbers. And Prepend is a VoIP feature, right? So if you're using VoIP phones, you can add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones, right? So it gives them a heads up about the kind of call that they're getting. Saying, oh, this is, in this case, my LA promotion. So now my staff members know they can customize their greeting to match that. Once you've added main numbers, you can then set up your office hours strategy. 24-hour open office, right? You're taking calls 24/7. Custom office hours, if you select that, for each day of the week, you put a check mark in front of the day that you're open. And then in these boxes here to the right, you select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. You also have the option down here to say if you're closed for lunch, right? That means your entire facility or all your staff goes to lunch at the same time. If you do that, put a check mark, and then you can have your lunch hours set here to the right. And then any changes you make here, you click on Save Changes. Now we have office holidays. First up, are you closed for holidays? Right? If you are, you put a check mark. If not, you leave it blank. If you are closed for holidays, over here to the right, we have Add Holiday. We have Single Day, Date Range, and Advanced. Right? Single day, just like we have right here for New Year's Eve. You give it a name, you select the month and the date. Click on Save Changes. Date range, it's like I have here for Xmas break, where I give it a name, a start date, and an end date. Notice that there's no year indicator. So we tend to, we advise to avoid having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Right, and then lastly, we have the option for advanced, which is what we have here for Thanksgiving, where we just said, hey, the third Thursday in November, we're on holiday. Right, so you choose the month, 1st through 5th, as well as last, and then the day of the week. And then you click on Save Changes. If I want to get rid of a holiday, like I can get rid of this one here by just clicking on the trash icon. And then I click Save Changes, and now that holiday is no longer on my system. All right, incoming call handling. So this is how your system is handling calls to your main numbers. These 4 phone numbers up here. How do you want the system to handle it? We have subtabs here. So how do you want to handle it during your open hours versus how do you want to handle calls during your after hours versus your holidays, right? If I had kept we're closed for lunch, I would also have a lunch hours tab. So first option, calls come in, they go to the virtual receptionist or auto attendant. If you click on that, it's a link, opens up a new window, and this is where you set up your auto attendant or virtual receptionist. First, your main menu, right? These are the buttons people press on their phone to navigate through your phone system. You would click on Add Route, and then this pull down, you have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. Right, so up to 11 options, technically. Now, the default action is not something you actually, your inbound caller can press. It's just what the system will send them to if they keep making mistakes. Right, the second pull down is where are you sending the call? The pull down, Smart PBX directory. That's your dial by name directory, the user directory. Right, now, then you have users, right? So you send calls to a specific person, excuse me. Call queues, if you're making use of ACD queues, right, you can make a menu option go to one of your queues. Device would be a specific phone. Don't always recommend the specific device unless that device has built-in voicemail, right? So like a cell phone works because they usually have built-in voicemail, right? But you would want to avoid like the web phone because that doesn't have its own built-in voicemail. It's associated with a user. Media file is a greeting file, right? So it's going to be an announcement. So you could put in your hours of operation or your directions. just be aware that once the media file is done playing, the call will end. Let's scroll down. Here we have groups, right? These are ring groups or departments. And then advanced call flows. This is if you're making use of submenuing, generally speaking. And then lastly, voicemail boxes. So for instance, we'll go back up here to my front desk group. All right, then we have your greetings, right? This is where you say thank you for calling, your company name. You can include hours of operations, directions, special promotions. But the main thing you want to make sure you include is what people should press to get to people, right? 1 for sales, 2 for support, that sort of thing. And then these are your greeting options. Text to speech, you type in what you want the system to say, you click update, save, and save changes. It uses a computerized voice. There's no charge for this. You have 250 characters to work with, not words, characters. So not super long. The system will use the same file name for each version of this greeting that you type, right? So I type it in, I click update, save, save changes. It's going to name it my main open hours, right? Because that's where we are. Menu TTS, right? That's the file name it's going to use. Let's say I call in, I listen to it, I don't like it. So I come back here and I edit the file, right? I just type in a couple words, remove a couple, whatever. Update, save, save changes. The system will then use main open hours menu TTS, but I'll have 2 files with that same name. I won't know which one is which. My recommendation, if you use text-to-speech greeting, that first time you do so, you want to go over to your greetings tab and find that first main open hours menu TTS and change the name to something you'll recognize, like main greeting 1, right? That way you know, hey, that's the first one I made. So if you make a change and that second one you don't like, you can go back to the first one until you find one you like. Right. Upload your own file. Just like with hold music, you can upload a .wav, a .mp3, or .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Just click on choose file to find it on your computer. Open and then update, save, save changes. You can choose from anything you've already added to the system, whether it's another main open hours menu TTS or recording or an upload. You can record a file or record a greeting over the phone. Now, by default, the system wants you to use a VoIP phone that you've added to the account, right? That's a security feature. If you don't want to do that, right? Let's say you want to use your cell phone because that's convenient and you already have it in hand versus like you're waiting for a VoIP phone to arrive. Then under settings, allow outside recording. You want to turn that on. What that is saying is that you're allowing the main greeting to be changed by a phone outside of the account, your cell phone. So then you would call in to your main phone number and you need to enter a PIN number. If you don't have a greeting in place, right? So you just started with us, for instance, you call your main number, you're going to hear the system say that no greeting has been set for this menu, and then we'll prompt you for a PIN number and then walk you through recording a greeting. But let's say you started off with a text-to-speech greeting. You figured out how you want, what you want to say, and the proper order of everything. But then you want to use your own voice or your friend's voice. So you call in, you hear that text-to-speech greeting. You can still enter that PIN number, right? The system will recognize it and then walk you through recording that greeting. Now, when you do it in that case, right? So we're using a text-to-speech greeting, so main open hours menu TTS. You record it over the phone. The system will grab that file name and keep it, right? It's just going to rewrite the content of the file. So again, you'd want to double check it in greetings and probably rename it to something you'll recognize. Now, this PIN number is specific to my open hours, meaning it only works during my open hours, right? So if I call at 8 p.m. when I'm closed and I try to enter this PIN number, it's going to give me an error message saying invalid entry. All right, next up, we have the professional recording services. When you click on order, this will open a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. They have many voice actors and actresses to choose from, different versions of English, Spanish, and French. They handle their own billing, and they deliver to you via email. So then you can just upload your own file. All right, now we have settings. So these first two are related, or somewhat related, right? So number of retries on missed dial is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake, right? The dialing timeout is how much time the system listens for a second tone after it hears the first one. So call comes in, and let's say the person pressed 7, right? That's not a valid entry, and I don't have an extension number 7. The system counts to 5, making sure that there's not a second or a third digit coming after that initial 7 press. It says, oh, you really meant 7. Double checks. Says, no, 7's not a valid entry. It will now go into the first retry, right, and only retry. Right? The system will replay the greeting. Say the person presses 7 again, for whatever reasons. System waits to count to 5, make sure there's not additional button presses. Now, in this instance, right, I don't have a valid menu option 7. There's no extension number 7. The system will send the call to the default action. If I remove this, right, so I don't have a default action, on that second attempt, that's wrong. The system will then play, we didn't recognize your entry, and end the call. All right. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. And this just means if the person calling in knows the extension number they want to reach, the system will let them enter it and then transfer the call to that extension number. Right? If you turn this off, that means they can only press these menu options. Right? They can't, if they enter an extension number, they get that invalid entry message. All right, and by default, this one is off. The suppress the playing of invalid entry, right? So by default, it's going to play it. If you turn this on, now you're not playing that message, right? You're suppressing, right? You turn on the suppression. Now, any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you want to click Save here, right? Takes you back to incoming call handling. You need to click Save Changes here. You're clicking Save twice. All right, second option, this is your live operator answer option. Right? You're giving someone a chance to answer the call first. If they can't pick up, right, then you're sending calls to the virtual receptionist. So this is a pull down. You can select users, you can select call queues, you can select devices, you can select media file, you can select ring groups. I believe that's it. Oh, and you also have the other attendants. So for this instance, right, I'm sending calls to a group of people. If they're not able to answer it, then it goes to my virtual receptionist. Now we're still under open hours, so it's the virtual receptionist we were just looking at. If I take it to after hours, and we'll say it here. Right, again, so calls go to my front desk people. They're not able to answer it. And now we're on a slightly different virtual receptionist because it's after hours. So for instance, I probably want to have a different greeting play, right? I probably have different menu options because I have different staff members working. One thing to keep in mind here, you can play a media file as one of your options. I recommend not doing so, as that can confuse your inbound caller because now they're going to have two greetings play back to back. All right. Next option is similar in that you can offer the call to a person or a group, etc. Right? All right, users, devices, media file, group, queue, etc. But you also have the option to skip the voicemail. And that is because the endpoint is a voicemail box you choose. So we see this typically for like a seasonal business. So like haunted house businesses, right? They're probably in holiday mode. Whereas like tax preparers, right? They're open right now, but in another couple months, if that's all they do, right, they would probably go into this mode and send calls straight to voicemail. This last option here is if your account has multiple auto attendants. And so you can send callers to a particular secondary auto attendant if you're so inclined. The main conference numbers, right? So you can have multiple conference numbers if you're so inclined. If you only want to have the one, right, you can just click unassign. And now I only have one conference number. You have the option here to add from your spare numbers, so you can add it back in, or you can buy new numbers, right? Local toll free. Custom greeting is text to speech. You just type in what you want the system to say. Now, if I leave it like, or turn it to disabled, when I call the conference number, I'll still hear a message saying, welcome to the conference, please enter the conference room number. The main fax box, you can have the one fax box number, right? So if I didn't have one here, I'd have either add from spare or buy new. Once you have a fax box number, you want to click edit fax box here, and then you have two fields you want to look at. So the first is the inbound notification email. So this email address, they're going to get an email every time someone sends a fax in. That email will include the date, the time, the phone number, and a PDF attachment for the fax that was received. Now, if someone calls this number, right, and then they hear fax tones and hangs up, this email address is also going to get an email saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. The second box is the email permissions. This is for sending faxes out. It's designed to put in your company email domain, so that way everyone at your company can send a fax out. They don't have to be a user on your Dash account. You could also put in a specific email address in here as well. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, auto attendants. This is a plan-specific feature, right? This allows you to create secondary auto attendants. Now, a couple use cases. One I've mentioned, right? Submenuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish. English and Spanish would then be attendants here, where they would have their own greeting in their appropriate language. And then the menu options would go to English and Spanish-speaking staff members, respectively. The other use case is, or that we see, is for people who have owned multiple businesses, right? So each business has its own phone number or phone numbers and their own main greeting, but you have the same staff member answering calls for these various businesses. So you start off by clicking Add Attendant. You give it a name and then an extension number. Click on Create Attendant. The extension number probably only going to be used by your staff members, right? It's most likely your customers will never know. Now, once you create an attendant, you can click on its name, and then you have this option here. Actually, it starts off as unavailable in main menu. This means it's a standalone attendant, right? So it's its own business, right? If you click on it and flip it to available in main menu, that means now it's a submenu option. Now, it could be its own business still, but by putting it available in main menu, you're saying, hey, when they call my main numbers, customers can get to this secondary attendant as a potential menu option, right? It shows up different places that you can make use of it. And then you would click on Save Changes. As mentioned, auto attendants can have their own phone numbers. You can add from spare, buy new. Right, they have extension numbers. If you need to change the extension number, I generally recommend clicking Add Extension. Add the new extension number first. Click Save Changes. Come back, and then unassign the original extension, and then save changes. Then you have the little wrench icon here under settings. And you see here, I have open hours, after hours, and holidays. Your auto attendants follow these settings that used to be set up under the main number, right? So the open hours, holidays, etc. The auto attendants pull from the main number settings. So your separate businesses have to have the same hours of operation. But beyond that, right, this is the virtual receptionist, so it's exactly what we saw earlier. You add menu options, you add a greeting, you set up your settings, click save, and save changes. All right, devices shows your devices on the account. Red means it's unregistered, right? So we can't send a phone to it. In the case of a soft phone, that's probably because they haven't logged into their application. Right? Green means we can send calls to it. And then black here is it's been turned off, right? If you click on, this page will update and then it turned red. So they're not registered. Up here at the top, you can add devices. First up, we have SIP phone, right? This is that physical VoIP device, right? Sits on your desk. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some have many models, some not as many. No matter what, find the make and model of the phone you're working with. You need to give it a name. I normally say person's name phone. So Bob's phone, right? Or like break room phone, right? Its location and then the word phone. And then we need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each device. It's usually a sticker on the back of the phone. If you click on, or if the phone's plugged in, you typically like under its status or basic settings, there's also a setting for MAC, and that's that information we'd want here. You'd want to click on create device. And after you click on create device, you just have to go to the users and you can assign it to a specific user. Now, as far as our dashboard is concerned, that's all you need to do. However, for the phone to properly work, you need to get into the phone's web user interface, right? The web UI. You need to enter in a URL and double check some settings. For the specifics of that, you want to go to the support pages and you're looking for a document called Auto Provisioning Phones. It's going to have the screenshots for these various manufacturers, the proper syntax for that URL, and whatever settings we want you to double check on. Now, after you go through all that, the phone will reboot a couple times, generally speaking, and then it should turn green on your display here, letting you know it's ready to work. Cell phone or landline, pretty easy. You give it a device name, and then under number field, you have +1 area code and phone number. And then you click on create device. And we'll go down here. So we see here, this is a cell phone that's been added. We go under advanced options. This is the default settings for a new cell phone or landline. Now, we can send calls to a cell phone or landline. Once you receive the call there, that's the endpoint of the call, right? You can't transfer a call from your cell phone back to another user on the account. When we send a call to a cell phone or landline, right, that phone will ring. When you pick up, you're going to hear a message from the system saying, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. Now, that's great if you're using your cell phone, right, because that at least tells you it's a work call, right? It's a business call. However, let's say you set up a cell phone, right, on the system, but it's actually going to an automated answering service that you plan to use for after hours. That automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1. So that would cause a connection problem. To avoid that, under this advanced settings or options, this one here, allow use of cell phone's voicemail, you want to put check mark here and then click on Save Changes. So now when the system sends a call to this phone number, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Right? We don't wait for the one button press. We just say, nope, we heard connection, we're sending a call through. So now your automated answering service can answer the call. Downside, if this is actually your personal cell phone number and you had that checked, if your cell phone voicemail picks up, that inbound caller, right? Call comes in, you're not able to answer on your cell phone voicemail picks up. That's a pickup tone. So the caller ends up on your cell phone voicemail. Some people want that, some people don't. The other thing that comes up is this one here, keep original caller ID. So by default, call comes in, customer Mary is calling, goes to your cell phone, you see customer Mary's cell phone number on your cell phone, and you're like, I don't know this number. I'm tired about hearing whatever, robo-dialer flavor of the month is. So you let it go to voicemail. Maybe you're able to reconnect with customer Mary, maybe you're not. If you uncheck this, right, click on Save Changes. When customer Mary calls in, instead of her cell phone number showing up on your cell phone's display, be your main company number here. Right? So hopefully you would recognize your main company number, say, oh, this is a call that is worthwhile me trying to take. Now the soft phone, when you add the soft phone on the devices page, it only allows you to add a third-party soft phone. Right? So you're using a soft phone application from someone other than VirtualPBX. Right? So like Xlite from Bria. You would give it a name, you copy and paste the SIP username, click on the SIP password so you can copy and paste that, and then copy and paste the realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you need from us in order to program or provision that soft phone application. If you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone application, you need to add that on the users page, which we'll be getting to shortly. But here, you give it a name, click on Create Device, and then assign it to the user, and then provision the device. Devices do have a wrench icon here, so you may have to double check your audio and make sure that you have a codec in place. For soft phones, Opus is usually fine. For physical phones, you want to make sure G711A and G711U are in place. Also, if you click on the little wrench icon under Advanced, this is where you would select the specific phone number that a VoIP device is associated with for E911 purposes. All right, your Greetings Manager shows all the media files you've added to your account, whether it's a text-to-speech greeting, hold music file you've uploaded, or a voicemail greeting. All right, so you see the name, the source. All right, upload means you uploaded the file. All right, TTS means a text-to-speech file. Recording means you recorded it over the phone. You have an option here to download these files so you can listen to them to see if they're still needed or relevant. Little wrench icon here allows you to either delete the file or change the name so it's something you'll recognize. All right, so like I already have a main open hours menu TTS here. And then you notice I have another one down here. I don't know what the difference is between the 2 of these, so I would need to download them and either delete them or change their names so I know which one is which. Groups, short for ring groups or hunt groups. Departments, essentially. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name and then extension number. And then you click on drag your staff members that you want to be in the group, and then click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name, right? So you can always change the name at any time. And then you have the group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer a call to one of the group or to the group members. You have little arrow icons here. So you can change that as you see fit and save changes. Now, if you click on the members box, it shows your members that are in the group. Along the top here, you've got timestamps. This last one you can edit. The default for a new group is 120 seconds, right? 2 minutes. And right now, I am having calls ring in order, right? Starts with Michael, ends with David. You can click and drag on these sliders to adjust the ring times. So I could set up something like this, which is like call to ring all or blast ringing. Right, or I can click distribute, so it goes back in that order. If I want to change the order, I can click and drag on a person's name and move them around as I see fit. Now, I haven't actually changed the order yet, right? Because it still starts with Michael because he's at the 0-second mark. But now I can click distribute, right? So now Michael's at the end. Now, for ring groups, your staff members can take calls on cell phones, landlines, or any VoIP device. If your staff member has multiple devices, a call from a group will ring all of their devices. If your staff members have phones that support call waiting, right, and a second call comes into the group while they're on the first call, they'll hear a call waiting beep, right? So they would need to disable that on the device itself. Now, for the most part, your staff members have no control about if they're being offered calls in a group, right? Once they're in the group, they're in the group. The contrast versus ACD queues, which has a cost associated with it. ACD queues, you can only use VoIP phones, right? Soft phone, zip phone, web phone. But your staff members can mark themselves away. They can log out of the queue, etc. So they have some control about when they're getting offered calls. Groups can have extension numbers, and they can have multiple. They can also have their own phone numbers. Now, for groups and users or anywhere else, basically, that has where you can add a phone number, because they're not a main number or auto-attended phone number, they don't have hours of operation, right? So these phone numbers are open 24/7. All right, groups can have features. First up is ringback. So when you enable it, you can play a media file. So by default, what happens is when we offer a call to the group members, the inbound caller hears the ringing sound. And what that is we send the call to your group members. When we hear the ringing sound coming back from your staff member's phone, we pipe that back to your inbound caller, right? The ringing sound coming back. If you don't want that sound to be played back to the inbound caller, you would enable this, upload a media file, right? .mp3, .wave, .ogg, recorded mono under 1 megabyte. And this file will replace that ringing sound that's coming back from your user's devices. Now, downside is if for some reason we're not getting that ringing sound back from your users, then the inbound caller isn't going to hear anything because we don't have anything to replace. Doesn't come up very often. All right, next action. When you enable this, it's if no one answers, what do you want to do with the call? You have a pull down here. You can send them back to your main menu. You can send it to one of your alternate attendants. You can send it to one of your call queues. You can send it to a specific phone, another group, right? A specific user, or a voicemail box. And then you click Save Changes. Allow call forward just means if you enable it, your users can make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not going to be at their normal phone. Caller ID Prepend, this is for your VoIP phone features. Allows you to add text or numbers. I usually recommend one or the other. That will display on your users' VoIP or your staff members' VoIP phones, again, so they know what the call is about. Numbers takes you to your numbers page, starts you off on numbers in use. This just shows you where you're using your numbers. Yeah, you got the ear icon, so you can update the caller ID and E911. Now, you can't unassign numbers here, right? This just tells you where they are. Spare numbers shows you the numbers you're not using. Now, let's say I'm tired of paying, my bill is too high and I need to get rid of some of these numbers. I can click on the box in front of it. Now I have the option to delete. Actually, so I click on delete here. It says, are you sure you want to get rid of these 3? I confirm. And now those numbers are removed from my account, so I'm paying slightly less. All right, by numbers, local toll-free. This just adds extra numbers on your spare number list. So for future use, basically. Port a number begins the new port request. And then you need to upload a copy of your bill. It will then ask you to give like the address, the phone numbers you want to port. It will allow you to download a blank letter of agency and then upload a completed and signed LOA, and then submit the port request. Local numbers can take, on average, 2 to 3 weeks. Toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days. For the LOA, the information on the LOA should match what your current carrier has on file, right? So the business name, the address, whatever your current carrier has on file, that's what should be on the form. It does need to be signed. A digital signature is fine, or you can, sign it manually. All right, users shows all your users on the account. Gray person icon, standard user. Blue suit, that's your system admin, right? So they can do all the stuff we're doing here. Up here at the top, you click add user to add more people to your account. First and last name, pretty easy. Email address used for login needs to be unique for each user. You create the password for the person, and then you enter an extension number. The system will suggest you an extension number. You don't have to listen to it. You can type in whatever you want. By default, the system wants to create a voicemail box for the user that's intrinsically tied to the user. Then you have the option to include in the user directory. You can change that later if you want. Send emails to an alternate address. By default, the system uses the email address used for login to send things like voicemail notification, right? Or password resets. If you don't want emails to go to that email address, then you would use the send to an alternate address and then enter that different email address here. And then here, send credentials to the user. So that way they have their login information. Now, if you need to add multiple people, you create user and add another. Otherwise, you just click on create user. Once the user is created, you can click on their name. You can change their name. You click on change credentials to change their email address or their password. You also have the option here to resend the password reset email. You can change the voicemail box PIN number. Now, for your VoIP phone users, you don't actually have to worry about the voicemail PIN number. Once they have a VoIP phone, right? So let's say this phone got registered. Aaron can call in. You can pick up his VoIP phone, basically dial *98, click send. That automatically logs him into his voicemail box. The first time he does that, the system will ask him to create a PIN number and then walk him through creating his voicemail box greeting. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. Here's your option for the company directory. This pull down allows you to change a user to an admin or an admin down to a user. Here you've got the account time zone, or the user time zone rather. You can do a search and find the appropriate city or close major city and set the time zone. And that impacts the timestamps for like voicemails. This flag here, that's for the display language. So what the web page is displayed to the user, English, French, German, or Russian. And then you have the main default extension. Users can have multiple extensions if you want them to. You'll just click on add extension number. Users can have their own phone numbers if you want them to. Again, that phone number is available 24/7 since it's not a main number. And let's see. Yeah, we're going to unassign one from Jan. So under the devices box here for any user, you can add new devices, right? So you can add any of the SIP phone, cell phone, etc., directly to a user, which I usually find easier to do. The main thing is for the soft phone. When you click on soft phone, you got the warning message. Then you got the big box. And now here, right, this is the big difference from the devices page. On the user page, you have the option of, says use third-party application. That's the default. You click on it. Now it says use VirtualPBX application. Now in this case, looks like John already has a soft phone associated with his email address. So I'm not able to add a second one. But in general, for new users, you would add the soft phone, you give it a name, click on create device, and then you click on save changes. After you click on save changes, the system will send the user an email. It's going to have the username and password for their soft phone, as well as download links from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. The other thing I find easier, or other device I find easiest to add here, is the web phone. The web phone has a login requirement. It just makes use of your Dash login information. So when I click on create device and save changes, right, now Jan can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, use his Dash login information on that page, and then he can make use of the web phone. All right, user features, caller ID number. This only applies for users that have their own phone number. If you enable it, you select whichever phone number is on their user, click on Save Changes. This phone number becomes Aaron's outbound caller ID instead of my default number I set up on the dashboard page. Call forwarding. Now, your users can turn call forwarding on themselves on the user portal. They just put in +1 area code and phone number, click on Save Changes, right? That's if you're like, hey, they're not going to be at the office, right? Let's say Aaron is, taking care of his mother. So he's not going to be at the desk, but he still can take some calls, just send calls to his cell phone. Failover mode is something an admin has to set up ahead of time. And what it does is if the VoIP phone that the user typically uses becomes unregistered and a call comes into that user, with failover mode enabled, the system will automatically forward the call to whatever phone number you designate. Hot desking is a VoIP feature. When you click enable, you need to create a hot desk ID. Typically, I recommend 4 digits. If you're making use of 4-digit extensions, I just say use the extension number of the user. Up to you if you want to require a PIN number, and then you click Save Changes. This is for a shared office environment, or you switch to a hybrid schedule, so your staff members are only in a couple days a week. Right? In that kind of scenario, you might have downsized the amount of equipment or even your square footage, right? Because you're like, hey, we don't need 35 desks anymore. We only need 15. So hot desking. Aaron comes into the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the VoIP phone. He hits *11, right? That turns on hot desking on that phone. The system asks him for his hot desk ID. If you enable the PIN number, it will then ask him for the PIN number. It will then tell him phones will now come to this device. So now whenever anyone dials Aaron's extension or his phone number, right, it's going to ring at the phone he's sitting at. End of his day, picks up the phone, hits *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time he comes into the office, let's say that's Friday, Felicia's sitting at desk number 2, he waves, he moves on, and he sits down at desk number 11. Same thing, picks up the phone, *11, hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to him at desk number 11. Voicemail box, right? We created it with the user. This is default. Now, Transcription is actually a plan-specific feature. It's where the system listens to your voicemail and tries to type it out in the email notification to you. It does the best that it can. It's not perfect, especially if people are not speaking into their microphone or they have lots of background noise. Now, by default, this system will attach the attach the voicemail message to the email, meaning it's going to have an MP3 attachment that you can click on to listen to the voicemail message. The body of the email will have at least the date and time and the phone numbers involved. Your voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages each. After that, they're full and cannot accept more. So then you also have this option here is to delete the message after the system has sent out that email notification, right? So basically, person leaves email, system sends an email with attachment to your user, and if you have this enabled, it will then remove the voicemail from your system, so the voicemail box cannot become full. The downside is that means your users can only listen to their voicemails via email, right? They have no option to call in to listen to it. They have no option to check the voicemails under the user portal. You can set up users to have their own fax blocks. If you do this, I strongly recommend making use of a phone number. That way they can make and receive faxes, right? Send and receive. In this case, Aaron is set up with a fax box with an extension number. This means Aaron can only ever receive an inbound fax. He's not going to be able to send a fax out. And that is because by default, or actually that's not even by default. When the system sends a fax out, it uses the user's fax box information to send out. And since he only has an extension number, it uses that as his outbound caller ID, which will fail because it's not a full phone number. Conference Bridge, if you click Enable as an admin, you just need to create a PIN number, click on Save Changes. Your users can change their PIN number on their user portal. The Follow Me setting is best for users with multiple devices. So let's go to a user that has multiple devices. And it looks like Michael has a couple. Click on Follow Me here. So we click Enable, and now we need to tell the system which devices are you going to use. You uncheck the devices you want to use. Now you have the little green bar, so you can click and drag, right? And I can click Save Changes right now, saying, hey, ring both these devices for 50-ish seconds. Now, like green groups, I have a total duration here, and I can click Distribute, right? I can also click and drag to change the order. Oops. Music on hold, you can choose to enable hold music for each of your users, and then upload .mp3, .ogg, .wav, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Customize call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this. You have to tell the system the kind of calls you want to record, right? Inbound internal means another dash user called Aaron, right? So we'll say Cody calls Aaron, so I want to record that call, right? Inbound external, customer Mary calls Aaron, right? Outbound internal means Aaron called Cody back, and we're recording that call. Outbound external, customer Mary, right? Calling customer Mary back. Click on Save Changes. Every account includes at least some level of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. There is an overage. If you go over, you want to check with our account services team to get the specifics of that. If you have high call volume and you're recording every call, I would strongly encourage looking at AWS, right? Amazon Web Services. You can use them for storage, and you can link your Dash account to AWS and use AWS for your storage. Again, for high volume, it's more cost effective to go with them. And lastly, do not disturb. If you click on this and enable it, that means calls to this user are going to voicemail, i.e. someone's on extended leave. Voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. If they have a name associated with it, that means this was created with the user. Otherwise, you can create your own voicemail boxes up here for like your ring groups or queues. You give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. Click on Create New Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, click on the little wrench under Edit. Right? You can review the basic information, so you can record the greeting over the phone, for example. Otherwise, you can go to Advanced, Reading Media. You can upload a file, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Right? You can choose from an existing recording. The temporary file, this is for the out of office vacation message. So if you have something selected in temporary, it will play. Right? It will supersede anything you have selected in media until you turn the temporary file back to none, at which point the media file will then play. Recipients. So your user voicemail boxes have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. But for any voicemail box, you can add new recipients, and then you enter the email address. If you only need to add one, just enter it here, click Save Changes. If you have to add multiple, you enter the first one, and then click the Add box. And then we go to the advanced options. So you have a greeting file in place, you have a recipient in place. You can put a check mark in front of already set up. For the manually created ones, you can also decide, are you attaching messages to email, and are you deleting after notification? Advanced routing. This is where direct inward system access is, or DISA. This allows you to call into the system with a cell phone and then make an outbound call. And when you make that outbound call, your cell phone number isn't displayed, but your main company number is. You click on this, you would click Enable. Click on it again. Now, by default, when you click Enable, it just gives you a PIN number. This basically says the system wants you to give it a menu option off of your virtual receptionist. I do not recommend this. I say click Edit Settings, click Add Extension, and give it an extension number that's not part of your normal sequence. Right, so I started off with extension 1000, so I chose something starting with an 8. So now I can call my main number that goes to virtual receptionist. I can enter in this extension number. Then the system will ask me for the PIN number. And once I hear that, I'll hear a dial tone. Then I enter area code and phone number that I'm calling out to. I make the outbound call. Now, the person I'm calling, they'll not see my cell phone number, right? We go back here, they're going to see this 323 phone number because that's my default number on the account. Now, DISA is not enabled on new accounts at sign up. This is something you would have to talk to our account services team about. And the reasoning behind that is if someone's able to figure out this information, then they can make outbound calls on your account and you wouldn't know about it right away. Probably not till you got your next invoice. One way to possibly know about those kind of calls, though, would be under your call logs. So here we see calls that were made today. The green arrow to the right, that's an inbound call, came into my system. Right? The yellow arrow to the left, that's an outbound call. And you can see it came from a web phone going to a specific phone number. So I know that was a legit outbound call. Now I can download this file as a CSV file, so I could view it in my favorite spreadsheet program. Little fire hydrant icon here. This reports the call. It basically creates an email that goes to support@virtualpbx.com. It has the technical details already filled out. In the body of the email, you're going to want to tell us what happened or why you're reporting it. Like, I didn't get audio or what have you. You have other built-in timestamps, right? This week, this month. Custom allows you to set your own timestamps. So I can go back and look at the previous month, for example, and download the files. The call logs will let you go back up to 1 year, right? 12 months. Our engineers can go back up to 18 months, although that does require an escalation. Beyond that, we can't recover the data. So if you need to keep call log information for compliance reasons, I would strongly suggest you do this every month and just download them and label it by month. That way you know which ones you're looking at. Next up, we have feature codes. I've talked about these. or at least some of these. Basically, they allow your VoIP phone users to access different dash features directly from their phone. This is also a web page on our support pages. And there's also a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet. It's a one-page PDF. It has all the commands as well as some context around it, so you know how to make use of them. And that is the dashboard. Next, we have Blacklists. This is an included feature. Go ahead and click Edit Blacklists here. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you're blocking from reaching your system, right? So you would click Add to create a new list. You give it a name, and then you choose if you're blocking anonymous calls or not, right? If you turn it on, that means you're blocking them. And then beyond that, you click Add Phone Number. You put +1 area code and phone number, like I have down here. No spaces, no parentheses, no dashes, just +1 area code and number. And then you keep clicking Add for each phone number you want to add. When you're done, you click on Save. You go back to Settings, and then you make sure that your list is under selected, right? So this list is active. The new BL list is not active. And then I click Update. So now any phone number on my block list, when they try to call any of my phone numbers, they get a busy tone. Call recording, by default, this will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. You can use your dash login there, and you can look at your recordings, download them, listen to them, delete them. If you've linked to AWS, this will actually take you to the AWS interface. The monitor is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members, whether they're on a call or not. You can have your, over here on the left, active inbound calls and who they're connected to. The parked calls, if there's an actual parked call, it will show the parking spot number. Right, and this doesn't care what device they're using. As long as they're a user on the account and the call came through the account and got to the user, it will show their status. Reports, this is a plan-specific feature. This will take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. It has its own login. This is where you would create your own reports. We have a demo on our YouTube page. Just go under videos. You're looking for the advanced reporting demo. If you're interested in this at all, I would say watch that video first and then contact our account services team. The voicemails, this is your voicemail manager. So you can see the different users' voicemail boxes, right? So if you need to double check to make sure if a voicemail box is full or not, but you select the voicemail box, you can see the messages, right? The date, the time, the phone number it came from, the phone number they called, the duration. You can play back the message. You can download the message. You can see further details. If you click on the check mark here, as an admin, you can move it to a different voicemail box, right? You can just say, hey, mark that one as listened. If you have many voicemails, right, you can use this to sort, right? So sort only the new ones or sort the listened ones, etc. Integration AWS, this is for linking with AWS. Then we have ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution, call center feature. This is an upgrade to an existing plan, and it's possible you may need to upgrade plans and then add the ACD queues on as an additional fee. You'd want to talk to account services to find out what's entailed. Now, accounts can only have either the ACD queues, which I have here, or the ACD queues Pro. We have a demo on our YouTube channel, ACD queues Pro demo, so you can see the differences there between the two. But here, right, you would click on Add New Queue, or in this case, I'm just going to click on the little gear icon here. You give it a name, and then you select either a phone number or an extension, right? So queues can have one or the other. Groups can have both. Then you have a routing strategy, which unfortunately this pull down doesn't work, but you have round robin, right? Equalize out over time. You have ring all on the under standard queues. The Pro queues don't have ring all, but basically rings everybody at once. Most idle, who's ever been waiting the longest, gets the next call. Least calls, which least amount of connected calls, right? So, and then least offers, which is the combination of connected and missed calls. Hold treatment, you can upload a media file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono. The pro queues, you can have multiple media files play, right? So you have one play, then a second one play. The pro queues also announce like the position in line or the expected wait time. The queue timeout is how much time in seconds a person can wait on hold. Queue call limit, how many people can wait on hold. This is on top of people who are already speaking to your staff members. Timeout immediately if empty, if no one's logged in, right? None of your staff members. Treat the inbound caller as if they hit the 3,600 seconds. Escalation call flow after timeout. If no one, right? If after 3,600 seconds, where do you want to send the call? Users, groups, other queues, main menu, etc. The zero out call flow, if you select something, that means you're allowing the inbound caller to press 0 while they're on hold. If they do so, where are you sending them? Right? And if you have none, that means you're not allowing the pressing of 0. Agent behavior. Agent recovery time. This is after an agent is done speaking with inbound call. If you put anything above 0 here, this is how much time the system waits before it offers this agent a second call. Force away on reject or missed. This means if your agent misses a call, the system will automatically put them in away mode and not offer them calls until they mark themselves ready. Agent connect timeout measured in seconds. The default is 20, plenty of time for a VoIP phone, which is the only kind of phone that you can answer queue calls on currently. Once you've created a queue, over here on the left, you want to click on the little members icon, right, the person with the headset. The call center members, these are the people who can be in my queues. I click on manage members. That list gets shifted over to the right. This list on the left, these are other staff members, but they're not available to be in my queues yet. I can click on their name and then click on add as a member. And now they're available to be in my queues. Let's go back to my queues here. If I click on the my support queue here, for example, if I click agents, now these are the people I've assigned to this queue. Right, then if I want, I can click and drag and move people out. And since I just added Michael here, right, I can move him in. So now Michael is part of this queue, which means he can, the next time he logs into Dash, he'll have an ACD queues link here. He can come here, and here, actually, let me log out. All right, so I begin my day, I click on begin session. That logs me into whatever queues I'm assigned to. All right, and now I start off in away mode. Especially that first time logging in, I want to click on the little phone icon here and make sure I select a specific VoIP phone. And I click on the icon again, and now I click where it says away, and I mark myself as ready. And now I'm ready to take calls that come into this queue. Right? When I go to lunch, I would mark myself as away, so that way I'm not offered calls. End of my day, I click on end session. Dynamic caller ID, plan specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change your outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. We'll click on this first one here. You give it a name. You choose a phone number on your account to display as the outbound caller ID. And then you choose the rule, right? So you can use a feature code or just use a specific area code. So what I chose here is 408, right? Click on Save Changes. So when any of my staff members from their VoIP phones dial a 408 area code phone number, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 408 phone number. So it looks like a local call, right? That one I find easier. The other one here is the feature code. This is where the major difference here is my staff members, when they pick up their VoIP phone, they have to dial *550 first, then area code and phone number. And when they do that, the system will then change their phone numbers to this 323 area code phone number. A little bit harder, but maybe more versatile. Fax Manager, this is an included feature. You can see your inbound faxes, right? The date, the time, the phone number, etc. The pages you can download and see further details. The Outbound Facts tab, again, you select your specific fax box you want to look at. Now, when you see a failure on the Outbound Facts tab, that means we had a problem communicating with the other fax machine. You see the date, the time, etc. You click on this far icon to the right here, and you scroll down, and you see that we have something that says off, right? So whatever we tried to dial was not active. I think that's the first time I've seen that particular one. Let's see what this one says. So there might be other indicators like user busy, right? Line busy, etc. The email to fax logs, if there's information here, that means we had problems processing the request. The document or the email address might have been wrong, or the format might have been wrong. Click on the little eyeball icon, and you see here, error message, no valid attachment, i.e., this person added something that wasn't a PDF or a TIFF, right? They might have forgotten the attachments completely, but they could have added a .docx file or a CSV file, right? The system will only accept the PDF or TIFF files. Number Manager, that takes you right back to your spare numbers page. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link Dash to other software, like Zapier. We have another video on the YouTube channel, Introduction to Zapier, which covers some of this. You need to know some programming or have some programming skills. You can also check out developer.virtualpbx.com to see samples of what we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software. You would actually need to talk to our sales team to get more information about webhooks. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user has their own user portal. As an admin, you can't get to anyone's specific user portal other than your own. You see here, you start off on your voicemail page. Now, if a user's voicemail box has delete after notification enabled, right, there would be nothing here. Otherwise, users can come here, right? They can play back the message. They can download the message. They click on the box. They can mark it new, listened, or deleted. They don't have an option to transfer. Your users can view their own call history, right? They can change the dates up here at the top if they're so inclined. If they have their own fax boxes, they can view their fax history. The contact list tab shows everything on the Dash account, right? So it's useful to like transfer calls. Like, oh, it's who's so-and-so's extension number. You can find it. They'll see the auto attendance. They'll see the queues, the groups, etc. Your standard staff members can't add anything to the contact list, right? This is just within the account. The conference tab over here on the right, oh, that's really squished. But this is where your staff members can adjust their moderator PIN and their participant PIN numbers for the conference rooms. They can choose to have people enter in deafened or muted, as well as play entry and exit tones. When they're in a conference and they're on this page, they can invite other Dash users to the conference. They can lock the conference, mute everybody, unmute everybody, end the conference call. Also, while they're in a conference, like each participant will have a little box, so they can mute a specific person as well as kick out a specific person if necessary. And then we have the Settings and Devices tab. This is where your users enable call forwarding. They just put +1 area code and phone number, and then they would click on Save. And that is everything. If you have any questions, now would be a good time. but I am not seeing any questions at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I thank you for your time today, and we'll be back next Tuesday.